The sound of screaming came before the image made sense. Teenage voices overlapping, cell phones raised, flashes picking up something that no one should be recording. Between two yellow school buses, on a narrow street where the afternoon was already beginning to darken, a girl was kneeling on the asphalt. The hand trembled as it covered the side of his face. The hunched shoulder. Breath was cut off. Next to her, a bully still on his knees too. But for another reason. He panted, sweat dripping. His hands were still closed. His gaze locked on his own violence, as if he had finally realized the weight of what he had just done. No one intervened. They only filmed. And deep down, crossing the school gate like a moving shadow, a man ran. Shirtless, tense muscles, the expression of someone who was no longer trying to control anything. He didn't know yet that he was about to make the hardest decision of his life. Imagine finding out that you beat Mike Tyson's daughter without knowing it. This is exactly what almost ended in tragedy at this school. The bully had chosen the wrong target. And when she realized who the father of that girl was, it was too late to turn back, too late to apologize, too late to pretend it was just a joke, but to understand why she was beaten that way and what happened when that man got to the three attackers. We need to go back a few hours earlier, when everything still seemed like just another ordinary day, when no one there had any idea what was about to happen. 7 o'clock in the morning. Crowded hallways, cabinets banging, laughter too loud, conversations that intersected, sneakers dragging on the waxed floor, the smell of coffee from the canteen mixed with cheap deodorant and old backpack. She entered alone, backpack heavy on both shoulders, headphones without music playing, just to avoid looks. He walked slowly, close to the wall, as if trying not to attract attention. Simple t-shirt, jeans. Nothing that screamed different, nothing that said, watch out for her. She was new there, third week. There was no group yet. There was still no fixed seat in the cafeteria, and he had a secret that he didn't tell anyone. No one knew that. At home, the person who asked if she had done her duty was one of the most feared men in the history of boxing. No one knew that the guy who sometimes picked her up at the gate had already knocked out world champions. No one knew that tired accent on the phone belonged to Mike Tyson. She didn't want them to know, because being someone's daughter was worse than being invisible. He passed through the door of the living room, sat at the last desk, near the window. He opened the notebook. He wrote the date. He took a deep breath. He tried to convince himself that this time it was going to be different, that this time no one would notice, that this time she would be able to be alone. One more. But schools have a cruel instinct to sniff out those who are alone, and it is exactly this ordinary girl appearance that almost cost a lot. Because 3 school bullies had already noticed her, and when they choose a target, they rarely stop on the first day. They commanded the courtyard as if they had a deed to the place. 3 guys, 17, 18 years old, broad shoulders, laughter that took up space, the kind who had never really heard no. And when he did, he turned it into a joke. The tallest wore a backwards cap. Arms crossed as I watched the movement. The one in the middle laughed at everything, even when it wasn't funny. And the third, the most explosive, had that look that changed too quickly. From joke to threat in 2 seconds. That morning, they were leaning against the railing of the patio. A younger boy passed by carrying a heavy backpack. The tallest stretched his foot. The boy tripped, almost fell. The backpack opened. Notebooks on the floor. Laughs. The boy bent down, collected everything in silence, left quickly. Nobody said anything. No one ever spoke. They had a system. They chose someone, always someone quiet, always someone alone, and tested. An unintentional push, an innocent joke. If the person reacted, it got worse. If the person kept silent, they came back, and they always came back. Every school has this group, that trio that thinks they own the place, who walks together, laughs together, intimidates together. That transforms corridor into territory. That makes the break look like a minefield. Here it was no different. And that day, they were bored. Bored is dangerous, because bored people are looking for entertainment. and their entertainment always involved someone feeling small. That's when the tallest one looked at the entrance to the cafeteria, and he saw her, Nova, alone, walking slowly, looking at the ground. He nudged the other two with his elbow, smiled. The problem is that their first meeting with her was almost harmless, but bullying never stops at the first contact. And what started as a bump? It was going to climb too fast. Second floor hallway, 10:30 in the morning. She was coming from the library, 3 books balanced on her left arm, cell phone in her right hand, headset hanging around his neck. Looked down, trying to calculate the emptiest path to the next class. He didn't see them turning the corner. The tallest came from the front, shoulder raised, purposeful. The impact was dry. The books flew. One hit the wall, another slid across the floor. The third opened in the middle. Crumpled pages. She froze. Oops. Sorry there. His voice had no excuse at all. The other two laughed. Low, controlled. The kind of laughter that doesn't need to be loud to humiliate. She lowered it slowly, knees on the cold floor. He collected the first book, then the second. His hands trembled, just a little. But they trembled. The middle one kicked the third book away. Not strong, just enough. This one is far away, huh? She took a deep breath, raised. He went to get it. When he returned, they were still there, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, watching. The explosive took a step forward. You're young, aren't you? She nodded. He didn't look him in the eye. What's your name? Silence. I asked his name. She mumbled something, too low to hear. They laughed again. Okay, whatever. And they did. She stood in the empty hallway, books pressed against his chest, breath held, the heart beating too fast. In the beginning, that was it. A bump, a thrown book. That laugh that hurts more than any slap. If they knew who answered the phone when she called home crying, they had probably stopped there. But they didn't know, and bullying almost never stops on the first day. Because people like that don't seek justice, looking for a victim. And when he meets someone who doesn't react, who doesn't scream, who just lowers his head and collects the books in silence, they come back. They always come back. And next time, it wouldn't just be a bump. It would be in front of everyone. 15 past noon. Patio full. Plastic tables occupied. Food trays. Soda bottles. The noise of cutlery banging. Strong sun coming in through the tall windows. People laughing, people arguing, people living as if nothing wrong could happen there. She sat in the corner. Empty table. Headphones in the ears again. Half-eaten sandwich in hand. That's when she smelled the smell of deodorant too strong. They were behind. The tallest pulled up a chair. He sat next to her. Too close. The other two stood up, blocking the exit. Hey, rookie. Eating alone? She did not answer. He tried to get up. The one in the middle pushed her shoulder down. Calm down. We just want to talk. Some people started looking. Nobody did anything. The explosive reached out. Lend me your cell phone. No. Her voice came out weak, but it did. He smiled. No. Serious? He snatched the cell phone from her hand, unlocked. He opened the camera. He pointed to her. Smile there. She turned her face. He held her chin. It turned back. I said, smile, flash, laughs. The tallest one took his cell phone. He started to move. Gallery, conversations, old photos. Look at that. She takes a selfie in the mirror. How cute. He showed it to others. More laughter. She tried to get her cell phone back. He raised his arm. Too high. Jump. Go. Jump. Some people recorded it. Others pretended not to see. She begged. Please. Towards. Her voice broke in half, and it was exactly this break that they wanted. The explosive threw the cell phone on the table. Strong. The screen shook but did not crack. Relax. It was just a joke. They left laughing. She sat down, hands shaking, eyes burning but no tears, because crying there was worse. The courtyard returned to normal. Talks resumed. No one asked if she was okay. No one ever asks. They wanted a stage, and they succeeded. They humiliated someone in front of everyone. They took the cell phone, moved it, filmed it, pushed it. She begged to stop, and no one did anything. But someone recorded the worst part, and that video ended up in the hands of someone who didn't know how to forgive. 3:30 in the afternoon. End of classes. School buses lined up on narrow street. Drivers talking, engines running, diesel in the air. Students leaving little by little. Backpacks on their backs, headphones in their ears, hurry to leave. She left last. He walked slowly, head down, trying to be invisible again. But they were waiting. Leaning between two buses, out of sight of teachers, away from the gate cameras, the highest blocked the passage. I thought we had agreed to be friends. She tried to dodge. The middle one held her arm. Where are you going in this hurry? The explosive approached. Different eyes. It was no longer a joke. Did you think you could go around complaining about us? She shook her head. I didn't say anything. Liar. Push. She stumbled backwards. He hit the bus. Some people stopped, far, watching. No one moved. The explosive advanced. He grabbed her by the front of her blouse. Do you think you're better than us? Think someone cares about you? She tried to free herself. He couldn't. He let go. He pushed again. Stronger. She fell to her knees. And that's when he completely lost control. The first knee came quickly. On the shoulder, she screamed. The second on the arm she raised to protect herself. The third grazed his face. She collapsed on her side, hand on face, breath choked. The bully backed off, breathless, hands shaking, looking at his own violence as if he didn't recognize what he had done. The other two stood still, in shock too. Someone shouted, "Film! Film it!" Cell phones raised, flashes, overlapping voices. She tried to get up. He couldn't. She knelt down, hand covering the side of the face, curved shoulder. Tremendous. The explosive knelt too. Not to help, to understand what I had done. Heavy silence, until someone, on the other side of the patio, pointed to the gate. Who's that guy? It was at that exact moment that a person received the video on their cell phone. On the other side of town, in a simple house, boxing gloves hanging on the wall, an older man, trying to live in peace, until the phone vibrated. And in a few seconds, all the self-control he had built up over the years was put to the test. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. A simple house in the suburbs. Light walls. Faded poster of an old fight. Boxing gloves hanging from a rusty nail. Smell of old coffee. TV on low volume. Broadcasting reruns of fights that he no longer watched. Mike Tyson sitting on the couch, worn. Gray sweatshirt. Slipper. Big hands resting on knees. Trying to live in peace, away from the spotlight. Far from scandals. Far from the rage that almost destroyed everything. The cell phone vibrated on the coffee table. He looked. Unknown number. Hesitated. Got video message. No text, just the file. He pressed play. In the first 3 seconds, he didn't understand. School buses, teenagers screaming, someone filming from afar. Then he saw the backpack. The backpack he had bought 2 weeks ago. His heart raced. The camera shook. Shaky zoom. But you could see it. 3 guys around a girl. Push. She fell. Knee. Muffled scream. He stopped breathing. The video is back. He watched it again. Slower this time. He saw her face. He saw his hand covering his face. He saw her kneeling. She saw the aggressor on his knees too, panting, looking down as if he had just woken up from his own nightmare. The screen went black. He stood still, cell phone in hand, stare nowhere. Breathing changed. Heavy, too controlled, like someone holding something that shouldn't be let go. He stood up slowly. He went to the wall. He touched the old gloves, fingers shaking. Memories came quickly. Knockouts, chain, therapy, promises. Never again. But this was different. This was not Ring. It was no rival. It wasn't ego. It was his daughter, on the ground, alone. He took the car keys. He didn't call the director. He didn't call the police. He didn't call his lawyer, left, door slamming behind. Engine starting too fast. Tires squealing on the way out. The question was not whether he would go there. The question was, what does a former world champion do when he sees his own daughter being beaten by 3 kids who have no idea who they just provoked? And the answer? No one was sure. Neither did he. 4:40 in the afternoon. The school gate is still open. Buses lined up. Drivers checking mirrors. Some students already inside. Others still dragging backpacks along the asphalt. Clear late afternoon, but the sun starting to go down. A car entered too quickly. He braked sharply near the curb. The door opened before the engine turned off. Mike came down shirtless, sweatshirt tied at the waist, tense muscles, tattoo on his chest, jaw locked. He didn't walk. Ran. Heavy strides. Stare. People moving away without understanding why. Who's that guy? I don't know. But run. He crossed the courtyard in 10 seconds. He turned between the buses, and he did. She was still kneeling, hand on face, shoulders hunched. Tremendous. The explosive bully on his knees, too, about 2 meters away, looking at his own hand as if he didn't recognize it. The other 2 bullies retreated, leaning against the bus, pale. About 15 students around. Cell phones raised, recording everything. No one had helped. Nobody had done anything. Mike stopped, heavy breathing, chest rising and falling, closed fists. Everyone froze. The silence was so dense that you could hear the wind hitting the side of the bus. He took a step. The explosive bully looked up, and when he saw who it was, did you understand? His face collapsed, mouth ajar, eyes wide. All the ego, all the arrogance, all the control, evaporated. He tried to get up. He tripped over his own legs. Mike moved forward. 3 passes. She stopped in front of him. He looked down. He said nothing. He just looked. The boy began to tremble, not cold, of real fear. Mike took a deep breath. He closed his eyes. He counted to 3. Then it went down. He placed the body between his daughter and the aggressor. He helped her get up. He held her shoulder carefully. He checked his face. He saw the bruise starting to form. His jaw locked again. He turned into the bully. It came close. Very close. In the background, someone shouted, "Director! Call the director!" Steps running. Adults approaching. Voices shouting orders. But at that moment, none of that mattered. Because everyone expected a monster. Everyone expected violence. Everyone expected Mike Tyson to do what Mike Tyson has always done. Knockout. But what he did, no one imagined it. And it was exactly this choice that changed everything. Mike stood still. Standing. Between the daughter and the bully. Controlled breathing. Open hands. Without closing the fist. The boy was trembling. Waiting for the coup. Waiting for the pain. Expecting to pay for what he had done. But Mike didn't touch him. He just looked, in the eyes. Steadfast. Silent. That look lasted 5 seconds, maybe less. But it seemed eternal. And the boy understood everything without hearing a word. He understood that he was alive out of mercy, not justice. He understood that this man could finish him off in 2 seconds, and he chose not to. He understood that true strength does not scream. You don't have to. Mike took a step back. He turned his face slowly. He looked at the other 2 bullies leaning against the bus. They lowered their heads. Fast, director came running. 2 security guards in the back, loudly, trying to control the situation. What's going on here? Mike didn't answer. He only put his hand on his daughter's shoulder, steadfast, protective. She leaned her head against his chest. He closed his eyes, breathed. The director looked at the bully, then to Mike, then to the cell phones still recording. Everyone to the board. Now, siren in the distance, police arriving, protocol in action. But before leaving, Mike ducked. It was at the height of the bully. She looked him in the eye again. And he said, in a low voice, so low that almost no one heard, "If you ever have a child, you will remember that moment." Raised. He turned his back. He left with his daughter. The bully knelt down, alone, tremendous. looking at their own hands. The other students gradually dispersed. Some are still recording, others in shock. No one is talking much, because what had happened there was not violence. It was something worse. It was awareness. It was the invisible mark that no punch can leave. Mike Tyson had the entire background, all the fame, all the reason in the world to explode. But he did the opposite. He didn't throw a punch. He didn't scream. It didn't humiliate. He let the justice and the school do their work. But that look, no one there forgot. Neither did the bully, nor his friends, nor who recorded it. And you, would he have that strength? I would have been able to look at who hurt your son and choose silence instead of revenge? Comment there. Because that lesson goes deeper than any knockout. And what happened to the 3 bullies after that? The consequence was real, and it lasted much longer than a knee. The next day, boardroom, door closed. Parents called, 3 chairs occupied, 3 heads down. The bullies didn't say much. They had nothing to say. Immediate suspension, 15 days out. Disciplinary process opened. Police record for assault on a minor. Lawyers involved. Sporting future of one of them. Cancelled. The explosive lost the athlete's bag. The tallest was transferred to another school. The middle one had to do community hours and mandatory therapy. Everything recorded, all documented. Everything is permanent. It was not just a joke. It never was. Mike's daughter stayed at home for 3 days. Bruise on the face, shoulder pain, psychological follow-up. But she came back, because giving up was not an option. When he entered the school again, the corridor fell silent. People watching, people swerving, people ashamed of having recorded and not having helped. She was no longer invisible. It was no longer just another one. It was the girl who survived, the girl whose father chose to teach rather than destroy. And that weighed more than any punch. Mike continued to pick her up at the gate, sometimes with a cap, sometimes in a hood, always on time. He didn't talk much. I just asked, "Is everything okay?" And she answered, "I am." And it was true, because the lesson was not only hers, it was from everyone who saw it. The 3 bullies became a living example of what happens when you think no one will charge you for your actions. They became the story that is told to those who think that bullying has no consequence. They turned the warning. But the biggest lesson wasn't about being afraid of who someone's father is. It was about a simple thing. You never know who's on the other side. You never know what scar you can leave with the little joke. You never know when someone's silence isn't weakness. It's just patience running out. And the real strength, true strength, does not scream. You don't need to prove anything. Just look in the eyes and teaches, in the quietest way, in the deepest way, the way it is. Now tell me something. If you were in his place, what would you do? Would he have chosen revenge or lesson? Comment below. I want to know. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, if it made you feel, leave your like. Share it with anyone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to the channel. Activates the bell. Because stories like this, real, hard, human, we bring every week. Stories about justice, about limits, about what happens when you cross the wrong line, and about the power of choosing silence when everyone waits for the scream. See you next time.